Thank you for joining in once again and listening to another episode of the Edible Valley Podcast. I'm chef and host Jonathan Fraser.
And I'm your co-host Aaron Howlett. Join us again as we go on another culinary adventure of the Comox Valley and beyond.
This is episode 170, the Comox Valley Canning Company.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Edible Valley Podcast. We got a little display on the table right now.
Yeah. Hi, John. How
are you doing, Darren?
I'm good. Yeah, well, today we've got the Comox Valley Canning Company. JJ specifically from the Comox Valley Canning Company is going to be here sitting talking with us. And she brought an array of her products.
Yes.
We're going to talk about those.
We're going to find out how she makes them.
Okay.
Where they come from.
All right.
And how they grew up in her garden.
Okay.
Well, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for coming in. It's so nice to finally meet you.
Thank you very much.
And we're really interested to find out about your little products here. I know we've been chatting for a little bit here just beforehand, just warming up. But, how did you get into this?
3 years ago, I had my daughter, and we were living in Calgary. I thought I'd be a city girl for the rest of my life. That changed very quickly. My mom lives out on the island, and she had a hobby farm that she had been sort of pestering us to come out and take over for her. So we sort of jumped with both feet super quickly and came over and thought, maybe we'll try to grow a business together. We're not really know anything about farming, so I didn't really want to just be like, we'll be farmers. But I love to cook. So I thought, how can you cook and have kids at the same time? And canning was something that came up. I hadn't really done it before, but right. I thought I could give it a whirl, and I think I'm pretty good at it without patting myself on the back too much. But I think I have a pretty good taste palette, and I have an attention to detail. So
right.
I like to baby my products and my vegetables and turn them into something delicious to sort of share with the community.
Can we talk about some of the things that we have here in front of us?
Sure can. Which one catches your eye first?
Well, let's. Why don't we start with the pickled scapes, just because they're closest to us, and I know that John cooks with them often.
Pickled scapes, yeah. So scapes, I think most people in the valley know what they are, but scapes are the sort of flower of the garlic plant. They have to cut off the top so the bulb of the garlic gets bigger. So if you grow garlic, you have scapes, and pickled scapes is a relatively easy way to process scapes, but they taste absolutely delicious.
Right.
They just add that extra garlic.
Oh yeah, and there's so many. You can put them in
pickly.
Caesars. I like to cut them up and put them in anything you would put like capers in, but it's like a little garlic, and it's so yummy. Or just like straight from the jar, right? Sometimes you just.
On a funny side note, I had a couple garlic scapes on the counter here the other day, and our co-host Will there kind of goes, "What are those?"
Oh yeah.
So he's learning as we go along with the podcast.
Nice.
But I've got to get him into some pickled scapes because I know it will blow his mind.
Nice. Well, I will leave these. You have to wait a little because they're super fresh. July 17th, I think. But after July 17th, crack them open and let them.
Good times.
Let them take a try.
Yeah, and then the star of the show here, the one that sits above all, the tomato soup concentrate.
The tomato soup concentrate. Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to do with tomatoes. So it's just tomato, onion, garlic, a little bit of chili pepper, and I roast the tomatoes in the oven for a couple hours as well as the garlic, and then throw it all together and let it simmer for about a day. So it has a lot of really sort of deep tomato flavor, super tasty garlic. Everything comes straight from my garden to the jar, and it's really just four things.
Yeah, and imagine all that cooking time, not just with the roasting, but the cooking it down just builds like an intensity of flavor.
Yeah, it's really great. You could do sort of straight from the jar, and the tomato flavor is like really kind of in your face. Or if you're looking for something a little bit more tamed down, you can mix it with some broth, and you have just a nice sort of like tomato soup. Yeah.
What about I'm curious about this ginger honey pear butter.
Oh, ginger honey pear butter. So this is the days when I used to pick up seconds, there was a very generous couple who came by one of my first markets, and they have like the biggest pear tree in their yard. And they said, we pick like 10 of the pears off of this tree that is like 100 years old. If you want to come and pick until your heart's content, and like it's yours. And I thought, oh, okay, that's super nice. Like,
Yeah.
I'll get some. And we brought a couple boxes, and I got there's like the biggest pear tree I've ever seen. There's like millions of pears. We took boxes and didn't make a dent. Like you couldn't even tell.
That's amazing.
It's amazing how many pears are on a tree.
Right?
Like,
It's
like,
nuts.
There's a pear tree 2 blocks away, just to the south here. I knew the person, and I just said, hey, if anybody's got any extra fruit. And they said, oh, we've got a pear tree that's like laden with pears. Come get as much as you want. And I took 4 Dairyland crates and filled them, and same thing. You couldn't even tell.
Like you didn't make a dent, and you're like, I've been picking for like an hour. How is this possible?
Yeah, exactly.
How?
Yeah. Take the pears and
So I got pears from them, and then I have a couple apple trees in our yard,
Oh, yeah.
and then sort of mix it, and then just let it cook down. Tastes amazing on toast for breakfast, but also super good on like meat or like sausages. It tastes good on.
I'm just thinking of a nice pork chop right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, for
You
sure
know,
on
maybe,
a pork
maybe
chop.
a couple toasted nuts on top.
Yeah. I also make a spiced apple pear butter, and that one is sort of sugar free, and it's just apple pears and then like a bunch of spices, like allspice and ginger and stuff like that, and then that's also super tasty on pork.
And then I remiss if we don't talk again about the HP sauce. We already talked about it before we were recording.
No, the not HP sauce.
My apology.
The not,
it is not
HP sauce, because we don't want to step on anyone's toes. The not HP sauce is sort of our version of a steak sauce. It's a delicious fruit-based, basically fruit butter. So
Right.
it's prune plums and apples, and it's got onions in it, and then it's got a ton of vinegar and spices, and it's this nice dark color.
Yeah.
It tastes great on honestly any meat you can put it on.
Exactly.
It's absolutely delicious.
Yeah, you just cook it right down, and the fruitiness of the fruit sort of goes to the background, and like the vinegar doesn't take over. I made it once or twice now, and it's amazing what happens, the chemistry that happens. You're like, I'm not going to put fruit on this steak. But when you look at what you've done with it, it becomes this like unctuous and deep flavor. It's so good. I agree.
So
it's great.
good. Yeah.
So
I'm getting hungry here.
And I love that your salsa looks very much, I find it looks different than a lot of other sort of cottage or the smaller industry salsas, where you have, they can be kind of loose, and yours is like dense. And
I my entire life have been hugely critical of homemade salsa because it's liquidy,
Right.
And you get water on your chip, and I just like it. It's super nice that people make it, and that's that it's great. I've always been really picky about it, so when I make it, I just let it cook for days and days and days and days, and eventually all of the liquid of the tomato cooks off, and you're just left with this like super dense salsa. with the peppers and the onions and the tomatoes and so all of the flavor of those veggies really come through because you have none of the sort of like watering out.
And you use a lot of different peppers in there?
I do, yeah. So we've actually been super lucky growing peppers till this year, just outside in the garden. We started growing them underneath the high cover year one because we thought peppers, they need heat, but then had extra, so threw them out in the garden, and they did so well in the garden and grew bigger and like were more prolific. So we, the second year, just put them basically all in the garden, and they did great again. This year we again put them all in the garden. They're suffering a bit with our wet and not super warm weather.
It's not that. Yeah, I know a few tomato farmers that are just like, if you want green tomatoes, we have lots. But as for, we just need some heat just to make everything
right. But so we just do a kind of a random assortment. There's poblanos, and there's something called giant ristra, which is like a long green pepper that turns red, but it's sweet.
Right.
And I throw like jalapenos and banana peppers.
That's great. And so this is just a sort of a smattering of what you have. This doesn't represent everything that you do. This is just what you've got going today.
This is just sort of what I have really left over from last year because I haven't started canning this year. Sort of the produce hasn't begun coming off in sort of enough quantity, except for the pickled scapes.
Right, of course.
But basically, my kind of approach is I grow what I can grow, and we eat fresh, and I bring to the farmer's market some fresh produce. And then I can everything else. So this is sort of what I have left from last year. So I can what I don't sell at the market.
So do you sell like produce as well?
I do sell produce as well. Yes.
Well, that's actually a good segue to talk about where you get your product from and your farm.
So you can pick up Comox Valley Canning Company products at the farmers market. I've been going to the Sunday farmers market in Cumberland, but am also going to be attending the Saturday market in Courtenay later on in the season when sort of the garden starts producing a little bit more. And as the garden produces more, so what I have coming up for canning, I have zucchini coming up, which means I'm going to be making my zucchini relish. And I've been told it's so good that people just eat it straight from the jar and don't even put it on anything. I had someone buy a jar and come back the next week and buy 3 more. And she was like, I got it home and I tried it and then I ate the whole jar. And so I have to get more. That's awesome. So that's something that I'll have coming up because zucchini starts producing or has started. And once it starts, it never ever ends.
Yeah. It doesn't.
So that's but that's a great way to use, right? Because I use a ton of zucchini in the relish, and it makes a lot. And you were talking about green tomatoes. I actually also make an amazing green tomato mincemeat pie filling that I do sort of as a traditional recipe I got from my grandmother. So it's got the beef suet in it and like raisins and currants and all the spice. So I personally am not a big fan of mincemeat, but people who love it love my mincemeat. They come back and they're like, oh my God, how do you do that? And I'm like, you know what? I follow my grandma's recipe and it's the only thing that I don't try before I can. I'm just like, you know what? Fingers crossed, Dad. We're just gonna we'll just call it a day and hope it tastes good in the jar.
That's funny. I used to make a mincemeat ice cream every year. But there was only 3 people that were like, everyone would try it, but there was those people that were like, just like hone in on it. And that was what they wanted. Yeah. And everyone else was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Mincemeat is something I think you make for the fans, right? And it's like the people who like it, love it. And the people who've never heard of it are like, what?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, thank you.
There was a couple of flavors that were like that. Matcha was another one that always like people were matcha ice cream because they're like, the people who like matcha, they were like, boof. It was gone. They're like, I'll have triple scoop. And they're like, but
but other people are like, maca? What is this maca? I don't think so.
They're like, it looks cool because it's green.
But
so you get your you get all of your produce for the most part from your I'm just trying to track this. So you get it from at your house. You have a bit of a producing garden. And then you have your mom's farm. Yeah.
So we have we moved on to we actually just bought. So it's now our hobby farm, which is very exciting. So we have the hobby farm, which has a bunch of fruit trees. We've got peach and fig and apple and pear. We had cherry, but the cherry got a disease. We had to get rid of it, unfortunately. And then we have a bunch of garden space and a couple high covers. So I grow a lot. I grow all of my cucumbers, a lot of my tomatoes, kind of early onions, beans. I also do a pickled bean, which is delicious. I don't have it here. And a few other things at our place. And then my mom has a much larger farm that I have a ton of space in, and I farm there as well. So sort of the bigger crops like potatoes and onions, our bush tomatoes. So I farm in 2 locations, but
Wow.
it's sort of, it's a lot of work, especially with 2 kids.
Yeah,
but
2 little kids.
Yeah, 2 little kids, but we will pen them off. Not so much the 3-year-old anymore. She's harder to get to stay still. But we used to just pen her off in like the corner of the garden under a shade and be like, all right, I'll be back. I'm right here. Weeding.
Oh.
Yeah,
and so you used to take seconds?
When we started, we weren't growing nearly as much as we grow now. And we thought the idea of picking up seconds from other farms in the valley was a great way to sort of help decrease food waste, because
Absolutely.
you can use a lot of like not great produce in canning and just get rid of the part that is squished or starting to rot or anything like that, and still make really good product. So we started initially picking up seconds from Amara Farms and Merville Organics after they supplied Lush, and they have a significant amount of leftovers. So they were super, super kind, offered sort of us a pick, and we just went through and kind of picked what we could can. And that was year 1, sort of ever evolving this build your own business, build your own business thing. You can do whatever you want. I really wanted to get into the farmer's market. And so to be in the farmer's market a little bit more consistently, it makes more sense for me to just can what I grow.
Right.
Also, my time, like my available time to do things is a little bit less with 2 kids now.
Of course.
So canning what I grow is honestly a big enough job as it is, although doing seconds is something I'm hopeful to sort of revisit in the future, right? As kids start getting older and less dependent. I'd really love to, continue growing what I can grow super well, and then adding kind of from other farms around the valley. Yeah. Their cast-offs. And
so is this just you doing this?
This is just me. We started as a husband-wife. We were going to do this together. Babies with big dreams. Building a business is harder and more time-consuming than we thought. So this year, my husband went back to work. So now it is just me. So I do the farming, the farmer's market, and the canning. Around nap time.
That's always the trick, right?
As long as they nap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's busy, but I love being in the garden for like the first half hour of weeding even. It's I'm like, this is honestly, it's kind of nice. And it's super quiet out here and I can do it by myself. And then you're like, oh, but I really like my back kind of hurts now. But I do like being outside. I think, having the opportunity to sort of live an active lifestyle and do something that I like in cooking while still being at home with my kids and making it work around my schedule is something I'm super grateful for. And she's a little business now, but I feel like this is something I can just kind of keep growing and, hear what people want in the community and see if I can fill a sort of need that isn't being filled elsewhere, and just do what I love and share it with the people I live around.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. How much do you think you're producing right now?
Year 1, I canned like a crazy person, and I canned like 2,500 jars.
Wow.
Of like various of everything. Last year was probably more like 1,000 jars, and this year I have probably unrealistic hopes, but I have hopes of doubling what I did last year.
Okay.
But with 2 kids, so I'm not really sure how I would I've got a couple things that are amazing, but the time commitment to get them to amazing is pretty low. I do pickled hot peppers that are to die for, and that's and a pickle is a pretty easy chop it up, stick it in. You don't even have to water bath it, and it's good to go. So I have a couple things like that I'm hoping to do at a pretty high
Right.
like quantity, and then that doesn't take a ton of time, as well as then the tomatoes and like soup and stuff like that, because I really think those are good products that people enjoy.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we'll see. I'm just gonna do as much as I can in the time that I have, and we'll see where we end up.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I've got one more question for you,
Okay.
and then we'll probably trail off. But I was thinking for some of our home cooks out there, for some of the listeners, any tricks or tips you'd like to give them on canning themselves, or should just forget it and just come to you?
I mean, no, I would 100% be willing to share my tips and tricks. It's most people just aren't willing to put the time in.
Mm-hmm.
So the only tip and trick that I can give you is consistency. Everything needs to be the same size, like exactly the same size. And then patience.
Yeah.
It takes a really, really long time to cook things down, so they're the consistency that you're looking for. It's
Right.
not a like put it on a higher heat and do it in 2 hours. It's do it at the lowest heat you can for like 15 hours.
Right.
And stir constantly, so nothing burns.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to put in that sort of like making sure things are chopped like precisely and then slowly cook everything, you can do it yourself too.
No, that's a really good point. I hadn't even really thought about that. But yeah, if you don't have consistently cut, you're going to get different levels of something. Like the consistency is going to be, the actual texture of it is going to be different. And
yeah, absolutely. And it won't cook the same, or it won't pickle the same, or so everything has to be like exactly the same.
Yeah,
I'm going
that's
to
really
play
good
that over and over in the kitchen. I'm just going to have it on a loop. Like, low and slow, always stir your pot and make sure everything is the same size.
Everything is the same size.
Well,
So many times I go, I'm like, what is this? I'm like, one carrot's an inch, one's 4 inches. Like, how does this work?
oh, you've cooked with my kids before.
Oh,
haven't you?
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for bringing these by and telling us about everything that you've got going on. That's
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
This has been a really great experience, and I'd love for more people to hear about the canning company and to try our amazing products.
Yeah,
we
well,
would love you to share your contact information.
How do people get in touch?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I have a Facebook page. You can just look up Comox Valley Canning Company on Facebook. I also have a website that I believe is comoxvalleycanningcompany.ca.
I think that's it too. I think I looked at it earlier today.
I'm pretty sure it is. And all of the pictures, some of them look really good, and people are like, "Oh, are those stock pictures?" None of them are stock pictures. They're all pictures of like my produce that I just took with my phone.
That's awesome.
Yes.
All right, and otherwise, people can find you at the markets. As you said,
Yeah. So farmers market. Unfortunately, I'm not there like consistently every week. I've got 2 kids to work around, and the garden doesn't produce like the same every week. So I'm learning.
Yeah.
I'm learning. So, but I try and put on Facebook if I will be going to the farmers market.
Right.
And I believe the farmers market, I know for sure on Saturday they have the map that people can look at prior to going. And I think they do as well for the Sunday market.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Edible Valley Podcast. And once again, thank you for supporting us, and more importantly, supporting the people that make up your food community. We're always looking for new stories to share and people to talk with. So don't forget to follow us at Facebook at the Edible Valley Podcast, or Instagram at Edible Valley, our website, ediblevalley.com, and of course, to tell us what you want to hear, or if you have any questions for us, email us at theediblevalley@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us, because you never know where we'll be exploring next in the Edible Valley. I like taste, and it's sweet and flavorful.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. And just a little bit of that vinegar taste.
Yeah, delicious. Yeah, I just totally ate that.
Did you?
All of it, yeah.
Your first time of the pickled garlic stew.
I do like garlic. I don't particularly like pickle.
Right.
So,
But these are, I mean, this would be like,
Bit sharp.
I know where you would like this, is in tartar sauce.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, if we chop these
Love
up
some of
into
that. Yeah, nice.
For sure.
Yes, it's invading my mouth now. I can feel it.
Yeah, you
Little
got
army.
that. Now you're gonna have to brush your teeth before you talk to anyone. So
No, it's okay actually. It's one of those things that will go very well as an accompaniment, especially something quite mild, brings out the tastes.
Yeah.
On its own, 10:05 in the morning, bit sharp.